Hi, Blake here, which means it's Thursday. Welcome back to College Quilt Bag. I hope your week's been going well so far. The topic today is religion. I have a very long and complicated faith history or faith story. I was born and raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic schools my whole life until college. Yes, I will say now that the reason that I was not out in high school was because I was Catholic and I was surrounded by Catholic people who would not have been supportive. That does not mean that I hate the Catholic faith, and it does not mean that I have bitter feelings toward it, because quite to the contrary, I have a lot of respect for the faith, and it still has a very, very, very big space in my heart. And although at the moment I do not identify as Catholic, I do have a lot of respect for it, and I do have a lot of feelings for the Catholic faith. If there's no better way of explaining it. So I have videos on my personal channel, and the link is below, that they're really long, and they're like me trying to dissect or talk about my faith and like the path, the road that I traveled in regards to being Catholic. I'll just give a brief run through, but if you're interested, you can watch those. I was a very devout Catholic growing up, and I would say I was a very devout Catholic until I left. And the reasons I left, in part, were because I felt so strongly about the faith. I, at one point, wanted to be a priest until I realized that I couldn't because I'm biologically female, and then at that point, I decided I wanted to be a nun. That's how Catholic I was. But I left the church because I realized that my trans identity could not be reconciled with the dogma of the faith, and the idea of me wanting to change my body was intrinsically wrong, and it was against the faith, because in changing my body in such a way, I was basically disrespecting what the Lord had made, because we are made, as the Catholic faith says, we are made in the image and likeness of God. And by changing what God made, you are saying that what he made was wrong, and God can't possibly be wrong. That's disrespectful. That's basically essentially why being trans is wrong in the eyes of the church. Yes, I know there are many church leaders, many priests, many nuns, and etc., that are accepting of the LGBTQ community, but basically that's what the faith says. And I left the church because of that. And in the process of me leaving the church, I read things like Hannah's Bible, The God Delusion, and I read other work, and I studied I examined other texts that called for atheism or agnosticism, or that spoke about agnosticism or atheism or other types of belief systems. And I did leave the church. I consider myself to be ex-Catholic right now, not Catholic, and I don't consider myself to be an atheist or agnostic. I consider myself to be ex-Catholic. It's this own thing that I think of. I do think that I will go back eventually. I'm trying to figure out myself first, and I think I need to be okay with myself before I reinsert myself into something like that. So that was a brief run through of where I'm at and who I was. And if you're more interested, just go straight to my page later when you're done watching this. While I did leave my church because of my own queer identity, I think it's very, very possible, and it has happened, where people do stay with their churches despite their queer identities. I have a specific friend in mind who, while she was questioning, while she was accepting her identity, she never left her church, and she never lost faith. While, yes, she did struggle, and yes, she did have trouble accepting herself and reconciling herself with her faith, she never left. So I think it is possible. And now she's still a very devout Christian, and she's still a very big part of her church. I think that when people say things like, I don't understand how anyone can stay with a group that does not support them, with a group that hates them, with a group that speaks hate, etc. Basically what a lot of people in our community say about people who still practice their religion, who still are faithful. When I hear people say that, I think it's really unfair, because if someone doesn't understand, then they really shouldn't be able to critique it. And I'm not saying that I do understand, but I do think that not a lot of people are standing up for those of us who do decide to stay with our faith. And I think it's a very personal choice. And I think that we need to understand that when we are part of religions, it's not simply about the priest who says that gays should go to hell, or your mother who says that God doesn't love you or anything. When people stay within their churches, and I'm speaking of people that have accepted their identities and stay within their faiths. When people stay within those institutions, I'm pretty like I feel that they already understand what they're doing. And speaking from my own personal experience or beliefs, when someone is part of a religion, it's more about the higher being that they're serving, that they're praying to, that they believe in, than it is about the other humans that are with them. There's a reason why people suffer through what they suffer through when they're out and faithful. It's not, I mean, it's not like they're sitting there with these and taking the hatred because they want to. They're taking the hatred because there's something higher waiting for them. That's how I see it, at least. And I mean, yeah, I wasn't able to stay with my church because I felt that I was disrespecting God, and like I couldn't see myself being a good Catholic and disrespecting God in such a way, because I am going to like do some transition stuff, and I was planning on it since the day I left the church. So when I got to college, I was officially no longer Catholic. But some things that kept running through my mind were, if I'm not Catholic, what am I? I think that I really needed, at least at that point, I really needed to have some type of like foundation, foundation, religious faith, religious backing to feel complete, because I was missing something that I had known for 18 years of my life. So I actually went through looking through a lot of religions, and then my main few points were, what religion do I find myself actually believing in or capable of believing in, and which one of those would actually accept me and want me and not tell me things that the Catholic faith had been telling me. And I'm still looking, and maybe one day I'll find that, and that faith, I might end up going back to the Catholic faith. I don't know. I really don't. But I am still looking for a religion, because I do think religion is very important. Not everyone does. And I think, as I've said before, religion is a very personal thing, and it's a very personal choice. So yeah, that's my take on religion, and my take on being queer and being religious, or being queer and not being religious. And I hope what I had to say was interesting, that you didn't stop watching in the middle, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. Vicky's tomorrow. Bye.